Greetings, Earthlings, Cosmos the Alien, once again invading your screens to ask the question, what inspires you? Is it a friend? Is it a loved one? Is it a creator you admire? Now, I'm gonna particularly discuss inspiration with regards to art, as you can no doubt tell by the title. Although perhaps for you the title is up here. Inspiration can come from a variety of sources, but for me, it often comes from life. I come up with the topics based on just what I want to talk about. Based on, what's interesting to me at the moment. I'm talking about this because, I want to talk about it, because a friend and I were discussing the topic, and I thought it might be interesting to all of you, and I had a lot of thoughts beyond the conversation. I thought it might be fun to continue the conversation, to get other people thinking about the conversation, so, here I am now in this wonderful world with Bob Ross and a couple canvases behind me. It's a very wonderful world. Here's the name of the world right here. But I've always wondered, with regards to inspiration and motivation are often conflated, but are they really one and the same? Because oftentimes I find I'll be inspired, but not necessarily motivated. I'll have an idea, but I won't necessarily be motivated to put pen to paper, so to speak. Now, I'm not an artist in the sense that I draw or I paint. I have attempted to do so in the past, but I'm not great with drawing, nor am I great with painting. Although I find painting to be a relaxing activity, and I enjoy it sometimes. But I don't really enjoy drawing. This is awkward. Huh. Where'd you come from, Mr. Paintbrush? We shall ignore that. It's very, very rude of you to do that. Very, very rude. Well, what do you mean I summoned you? I didn't do that. Okay, we'll talk later, okay? We'll talk later, okay? Cool. Nice. The hired help you get nowadays just ain't what it used to be. Earthlings, am I right? Yeah. Sentient paintbrushes are another type of earthling. Not a very common species, though. Wouldn't you know it? But, at my core, I'm a writer. So I'll type. Or I'll write out on notebooks. Little notes about what I want to write or whatever else. But I'll often find I'll come up with an idea, but I won't necessarily I won't have the motivation to make that into reality, to come up with the proper prose to make it manifest, to make it, into a reality, to make those words, true, and to make that idea complete, to make it go from an idea into reality, to make it fully formed. Now, sometimes the motivation comes after. Sometimes I have to think on the idea a bit more, to take it from just a simple, smaller idea into bigger idea that has more detail, and then I can add the words, because then the words fill in the other spaces. They add even more details, because the idea might be a small piece of a puzzle that I've been already thinking on, and I just need to add more pieces. So sometimes inspiration needs other bits of inspiration in order to generate motivation, so they are linked in this case. But sometimes I need to get motivation separately. But that's not entirely always the case. Sometimes I'll come up with entire plot points and plot threads, or short stories or poems, and I just won't be able to create. Sometimes I just get hit with such intense writer's block, and I know people who do the same for other forms of art, where they just get hit with such an intense inability to create that no matter how hard they try, they do not get out the whatever creative juices are in them, I suppose. They don't get the creative juices flowing, and as such, whatever they do end up creating is unsatisfying. It is not satisfying to the same extent as if they had created something more spontaneously. So they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait until something better comes along. But sometimes something better never comes along, and so they stop creating for years and years and years at a time. Or sometimes it's months, and then, okay, cool, something comes along, and then they start creating again. Sometimes it just ceases entirely, and they just retire. It can vary. But obviously, I'm sure you're wondering what was the conversation that led to me kind of thinking a bit more about this, because obviously I'm just rambling about, my personal relationship with inspiration and motivation with regards to art, and then assuming that's universal. So, why don't we discuss that then, but not here. I don't think this is necessarily the best environment. That's a bit better, isn't it? So, conversation with my friend, we're talking about these videos I was starting to make a couple weeks back. At the time of recording, it was a couple weeks ago. And they were telling me about how they really liked a lot of the writing I was doing, and they were liking the videos, and they were telling me about, and I was talking about how proud I was of a video I had made. I forget which one it was, but I want to say it was this one right here. Now, but with this conversation, I was talking about how I felt like I'm really improving with my understanding of I don't think that's a word. With video editing software, with my understanding of how that works and how to convey my personality, how I would structure videos, how I would upload them, how to keep a consistent schedule. This will age badly if I break that schedule, I'm realizing. How I'd communicate the avatar, how I'd kind of do VTubing, how I'd bill myself, how I'd title videos, how I'd make thumbnails. I felt like I was improving in just about every respect. And, then my friend talks about how, that's how you're staying motivated, is because you're improving. Improvement is how you keep yourself motivated to create. And then I realized, wait a minute. Because I hadn't been able to really write. I had a really bad bit of writer's block for about a month. Nearly a month. It hadn't been an entire month. It's probably close to one, though. Where I hadn't, I'd been able to do revisions, but I hadn't been able to write this one story beat that I wanted to write out, despite the fact that I felt like I could see it in my head so clearly, and then I realized, this is because I'm not improving. But I'd been able to write that first chapter, the story beat that preceded it, because I was improving, because it was challenging to me, because I was challenging myself, because I was pushing a boundary. Meanwhile, what I've written so far, what I have drafted out so far of this next story beat, it's a lot of what I've done before, with the stories I've written before. It's a lot more of the same. I'm not challenging myself, I'm not improving my craft, and so I've lost my motivation. Sure, I'm plenty inspired, but I'm not motivated because I'm not improving. So, as a result, it's got to be asked, how can I improve? How can I change things? Thus, I need to be inspired. I need to brainstorm. I need to actively think, how can I challenge myself? How can I change the ideas around? So I need to think, where is the flaw in the idea? Can I write the idea in a different way? Is it the execution? Or is the idea itself flawed? Is the idea itself not challenging enough to me as a creator? Or is it simply that the idea itself is flawed? Is the idea inherently flawed, and thus I need to, go scrap it, and I need to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and I need to come up with a better idea, a new story beat that continues from the first one just as seamlessly, and then from there on, I'll be able to tell my story better. And I quickly realized, oh, that's why my friend is such a talented artist. Because they're constantly improving. They're thinking of ways they can improve their craft. And that's also why they're able to draw consistently. Even if it's like a little doodle, they're able to improve. They're able to think of just little ways they can improve. Oh, they're able to think of, I'm sure they're thinking of, oh, the chibi I'm drawing this time. Okay, well, how can I make it a little more expressive? Oh, they're thinking of this major drawing. How can I make the pose more dynamic? How can I make the expressions, can I exaggerate them more, or should I keep it more restrained? How can I communicate what I'm trying to communicate better? I realized the ways in which they were challenging themselves looking at their art. And I realized that they had a point. Challenging and improvement, that's how you generate motivation. And it's not necessarily inspiration that generates motivation, it's improvement that generates motivation. Inspiration simply generates ideas, and ideas that are challenging enough, those are what generate motivation, and that's what drives creativity. It's what generates the creative drive. Or at least, that's the realization I came to when thinking about that conversation further, and that's what I wanted to share with all of you. That's what I was thinking of. However, it might not be true for everyone. That might just be true for me. After all, one thing that drove me to make videos in the first place was that creative block. I couldn't come up with ideas for writing, and I couldn't drive myself to create there, but I could drive myself to yap and to game and to come up with ideas for videos. I could come up with the creative drive to make these and to come up with camera angles, to find worlds, to share this passion I have for VR and for VTubing, and a bunch of other stuff with the world, Sawarudo, and to kind of share my personality, put myself out there, to do this. I found inspiration in the ideas I could come up with. I found the creative drive in continuing to do this and whatnot. And what do you know, after that conversation, I realized, how was I improving? I was improving through finding better worlds, through improving my creative process. Initially, I just had the camera and I just stared at it. And then after a while, I had the VR check camera in front of me. And now I have OBS floating in the world. So now I'm staring directly at it. So I'm seeing the time code of how long I'm going. I'm seeing how much of my CPU is being used, what the frame rate is, and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm doing that for green screen, and now I'm being challenged by doing kind of let's play videos, and with my thumbnails, I'm trying to be more dynamic with those than when I first started out. And my very first thumbnail, I used a photo I already had used. I'm trying to edit those a lot more. I'm trying to, when I can, do a lot more beforehand to prep myself. I'm trying to master photo editing software where I can, even though I know a little bit, I don't know a whole lot. Okay, so it's learning a bit about that, learning a bit about this. It's challenging myself even in little tiny ways. And so it kind of goes back to that conversation. Improvement, even in the most minute of ways, leading to an increased creative drive, leading to this influx of ideas and this cycle. So because I had an idea that challenged me, I was able to keep going. And because I was able to keep going, because I was able to get to the end of that idea, I was able to come up with more ideas that challenged me in the same way. I was able to keep coming up with that same type of idea. I was able to figure out how does this idea challenge me? Oh, well, I need challenge in, to be challenged in video editing software. I need to be challenged in making content that's longer, or talking about topics that might not necessarily interest me as much, or talking on days that I don't feel as good or feel as up to talking or to recording or to editing. Or I need to challenge myself in this way or that way. I need to challenge myself in making thumbnails. I need to challenge myself in writing descriptions, in the specific worlds I find, in my body language, in projecting my voice, in just how I record, in the pre-setup, and making sure OBS doesn't crash on me, my computer doesn't crash on me, VR chat doesn't crash on me, making sure headset setup goes as quickly as possible so I can start and stop recording as quickly as possible. Heck, so I can get a video recorded and edited all in the same day. I've been able to do that because of that improvement. And heck, sometimes I can do the equivalent of a doodle in the form of a meme video, and I've been able to enjoy that because, oh, what do you know, it shows that kind of improvement through how I can record, edit, make a thumbnail, and upload that and then schedule it to come out all, in a single day, in a matter of probably 30, 40 minutes, and be done with it. And even then, 30, 40 minutes is probably being generous. So, all that said, Earthlings, for those of you who are like myself, who struggle with creative blocks, I encourage you to try and find those ideas that challenge you to be better, challenge you to improve your craft. I'm going to try to find the same with my writing. I'm going to try to brainstorm to find those ideas that challenge me to be a better writer, so that I can get back to writing, because I genuinely do love writing. I love reading. And I think if I could improve my writing, I think I could get back to reading as much as I used to, because as a result of not being able to write, I haven't been able to read as much, because I think the lack of creative drive has led to me not enjoying the medium as much as I would like to. And I'm also curious what you all think. I'd like you all to think on that and continue the conversation where you can, even if it's not necessarily here, but amongst your own creative friends. Ask them what they think, or just think on the subject, Do challenging ideas challenge you, or is it just simply trying to improve your craft using the same the same type of idea? Do you draw the same character in the same pose, but you try to think, okay, what way can I improve that same pose? Or whatever else. Or doing kind of yearly checkups on your skills. Something like that. But, all that said, this is Cosmos the Alien, blasting off.